To help give some of our pros and cons a little bit of context today, instead of just running through the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there is some ugly about living here in Idaho, I am going to do a pros and cons and pull in some other states to help provide context. Because when I see things like we have low property tax, well, compared to what? When we have low crime, compared to what? A lot of the people who call us day in and day out looking to relocate are political refugees coming from very liberal states. They are also looking at moving to places like Texas and Tennessee. So I today am going to use Texas as a comparison of pros and cons, but in general, this is just to help give you a much better idea of what it is actually like to live in Idaho. So first things first, I mentioned property tax. You may have heard that our taxes here are dirt cheap, and the property taxes are, but let's put that into context. In Texas, you might see on YouTube or just listed online these big, beautiful Texas homes for dirt cheap. Well, did you know that your mortgage is going to be on average $600 to $2,000 more a month on a big, beautiful Texas home that costs the same as one here in Idaho because the tax rate there on properties are so high. So let me break that down. Got my notes. Here, the highest tax rate in the Treasure Valley, which for those who are not familiar with the Treasure Valley, that is Boise and the surrounding suburbs, our highest tax rate is still more than half of the lowest property tax rate in Texas. We run below 1% here. In Texas, it's 1.6% as the average, but in the newer communities, you're looking at anywhere between 2 and 4% for your property taxes in Texas. So let's say you're buying a home between 500 and 550,000 here in Idaho. Your monthly expense for taxes is going to be somewhere between $281 and $375 a month. In Texas, for the same price home, you're looking at paying anywhere from $667 a month all the way up to $1,677 a month. I cannot imagine paying almost $2,000 a month towards property taxes. I'm not sure how they expect anyone to be able to comfortably retire or raise a family in Texas with those kind of property taxes. Come on, Texas. So I would say a pro of Idaho is definitely our property taxes. Let's talk politics. Pro of Idaho, definitely our political landscape. We are the least regulated state in the nation. We are free, honey. And I've got the numbers because a lot of people think that Texas is the model child when it comes to freedom and conservative states, but Idaho actually has Texas beat. Here are the statistics. So in Texas, 39% of the population consider themselves conservative. Here in Idaho, 42% consider themselves conservative. 32% in Texas are moderate. Also 32% in Idaho, moderate. 21% in Texas consider themselves liberal. Here, also 21% consider themselves liberal. 7% in Texas say they don't know, and 5% in Idaho say they don't know. So we've got Texas beat as far as the political landscape goes if you're looking for liberty, freedom, and let me tell you, people here are very, very patriotic too. Speaking of freedom, Idaho actually beats Texas when it comes to gun laws or lack thereof. We are a more friendly state for gun owners than Texas. We are actually number 2 in the nation when it comes to owning a gun, and Texas is number 18. So Texas has quite a bit more restrictions when it comes to owning a gun, acquiring a gun, and what you can do with that weapon. Whereas Idaho is much less regulated in that arena. So definitely Idaho is a pro when it comes to gun laws. Let's talk crime. Everyone wants to be safe and not be looking over their shoulder all the time. And you might be surprised to hear that Texas is not as safe as you think it is. So, Idaho is definitely a winner when it comes to this category. I compared data across many websites. It was all very, very similar. This data specifically is from NextBurb. On the national index, Idaho is below average overall for crime. We're 64 for our crime index. Texas is over the national average, and their crime index overall is 108. For robbery here in Idaho, we are 13 on the index, and Texas is 110. So I don't know about you, but as a mama, robbery, that's kind of a big deal to me. I don't want to get robbed. And this could have something to do with the fact that they know everyone has a gun in their pocket somewhere, and we're not dealing with robberies the same way they are in Texas. Another big one that I thought was really interesting was the motor vehicle theft. So we are 47 on that national index, which is way below, and Texas is 106, which is again above. So Texas, you might want to reconsider those stricter gun laws that you have compared to Idaho to help get some of those crime rates down below the national average. Just saying. All right, let's talk a little bit just about community and sense of community and what it's actually like to live here. I have helped relocate many families from Texas, and I myself have a lot of good friends who live there. And something I can say is Texas, just like Idaho, has pride of ownership, pride of country. A lot of people are very, very patriotic. But with that being said, if you are relocating to Texas, you are never going to be a Texan according to the people who are there, and you're never going to really feel like a true Texan. It is just different. When you come to Idaho, you are an Idahoan and accepted as Idahoan immediately. I know for myself, I relocated here and I just instantly felt like, wow, this is home. It almost felt like this is where I was from. Did not feel foreign to me. I felt like everyone around me was like-minded and I could just be friends with everybody. We all share similar value systems and similar reasons why we ended up here. We chose to be here. It's very small, and most of the people you are going to encounter were also political refugees. It's few and far between that you encounter somebody here who is just an original Idahoan. In Texas, you get the sense, or you are made to feel like you need to have deep family roots to be a Texan. I'm not saying that people are unkind to you, because I haven't heard a lot of that or seen that myself. It's just a different sense, is like you are in Texas, not in your homeland, Texas. It's just very different. All in all, I would say that Boise is a much cleaner place than Texas is. Texas, still compared to a lot of the locations in California and Washington, where I was in Georgia or in Oregon, it is still cleaner than that. But there is just nothing like Boise, Idaho when it comes to walking through a nice, clean city. We just don't have the panhandlers, the people sleeping on the streets, the graffiti, the trash. It smells like the outdoors. We're surrounded by foothills. It's beautiful. Texas, a little bit more of a concrete jungle, or a lot more of a concrete jungle, much more trash, homeless, panhandling, and graffiti than Boise. Again, you can't even really compare the two. That's just how clean Boise is. So culture, community, I would definitely say all in all, Boise beats the bunch. Now, as far as amenities, jobs, things along those lines, Texas definitely has us beat when it comes to jobs and amenities. There are a lot more opportunities there and a lot more amenities. I would say their small town versus our small town still offers higher paid jobs and more amenities than here in Idaho. My little brother was in the Marine Corps, the Peace Corps, and the AmeriCorps. He's got degrees, he's got job experience, all the things. When he moved to Idaho, it took him an exceptionally long time to find a good, decent paying corporate job here in Idaho. And his resume is pristine. So just know that our job market here is not as good as what you're going to find in a lot of other places around the nation, and that includes Texas. So one thing that you're going to want to keep in mind and reach out to us about early on is your job and working remotely. What a lot of people don't know is that just because your employer allows you to work remotely does not mean they're going to allow you to live in Idaho and do so. And unfortunately, we've had people who were looking to relocate out here, did not have representation, just thought they would come out and start the process, to only learn that after moving, they could not continue to work their job remotely. So definitely one of the things that we help dig into for you are all the details of that kind of stuff. Give us a call, shoot us a text, write us an email so that we can start getting you situated with that. Next topic is big old bugs. So a lot of people don't know that here in Idaho, we have a fly season, and it is gross. It is not fun. And some of those flies are so big that I call them Kuna birds. So Kuna is a small town here in the suburbs of Boise, and it's primarily still a farm town. And the flies, I almost said birds, the flies can get pretty large out there. So when I see a big old fly, I call it a Kuna bird. Pick up your animal droppings right away. Do not leave your trash cans out without a lid on them, and make sure that all of your screens are nice and sealed up, and you'll be okay. Otherwise, you are going to end up with a lot of flies in your house, and they're gross and large, but they are not as gross and not as large as the bugs you will encounter in Texas or in a lot of other parts of the country. It is just disgusting. So I was actually watching an episode of a police show with my grandpa, and this cop got out of his car to check on a woman who was jumping around on the side of the freeway. The reason why she was jumping around on the side of the freeway is because there was a spider in her car in Texas, and it freaked her out. She pulled over, jumped out, made the cop go look for the spider, and guess what? She had left her kids in the car. So just funny side story. You're not going to get things like that here in Idaho, but you are going to get gross flies during the fly season. Next thing that I think is very important to cover is the air quality, allergies, asthmatics, things along that line. So we have 2 times a year here where our air quality can get fairly poor. So if you are someone with significant respiratory issues or asthma, or you have children with asthma, this is something that we do need to talk about, or you need to discuss with your provider. The 2 times a year that this can occur is one during controlled burns or wildfire season, or in the winter during inversions. So here in the Treasure Valley, Idaho, we sit down low. And what happens in the winter during inversions is the cloud cover covers the valley. And during the fire season, controlled burns, wildfires, the smoke covers the valley. So the air gets trapped below the clouds, and the air quality can get poor. This isn't a long ongoing occurrence. But it does happen every year. And overall, I would say that 99% of people, even people who do deal with some respiratory stuff, can just stay indoors, use a air purifier, and be totally fine. But it is something you do want to consider and discuss. Now, in Texas, we have had to help families who relocated to Texas immediately relocate to Idaho because they got to Texas and there was something about the environment. And I don't know if it's the humidity and the type of like wooded areas or what it is there, but their kiddos could not tolerate it. And asthma became a really big problem. Allergies were a really big problem. Just all in all, breathing was a really big problem. And they had to leave Texas to come and live in Idaho. My recommendation is do your research and make sure that it is an environment you can live in, because nothing is scarier than moving somewhere and figuring out that you or one of your children or your elderly parents can't tolerate the air quality or the environment there and they can't breathe. The weather, I'm just going to say, I think hands down, Boise, Idaho, we are definitely a pro when it comes to the weather. If you want 4 seasons, we've got it, but our 4 seasons are all fairly mild, with maybe the exception of summer. Summer might be a little bit hot for a lot of people's liking, but the homes here come with air conditioners. That is included in the houses here. It's not something that you see people going and installing after the fact. So summer, we've got beautiful lakes and rivers everywhere. Everywhere has community pools, outdoor pool, indoor pool, you name it. You got your choice of bodies of water to cool down, and all of the buildings and houses have air conditioners. So it's pretty tolerable. And then as far as our snow goes in the winter, it melts pretty fast and it never is so significant that you're like trapped in your house, can't really run to the grocery store. If you've heard that that's what it's like in Idaho, you're probably hearing about North Idaho's 4 seasons. It is very, very different, significantly different. Here in the Treasure Valley, we're actually a high desert climate. So it's pretty cool that you get to enjoy some snow in the winter and not have to deal with really, really harsh winter conditions. Now, Texas, however, I would say that the weather, all in all, is a total con in Texas. It's very humid and there are crazy natural disasters in Texas versus in Idaho. I actually have a note so that I wouldn't forget. Did you guys know that Texas has something called bursts? So it's a quick storm and it causes massive rain and wind and it tears up people's houses. We don't have things here that are going to tear up your house. We do have some flood zones, which is another reason why it's important to work and have with a realtor and have representation. For those of you who don't know, I run the #1 team here in Idaho. Definitely love making these videos, but our goal is to provide you enough value that you feel comfortable reaching out to us and choosing to work with us to help you relocate. We're really good at it, so give us a call. Anyway, we do have flood zones here and we'll help you work through that and navigate that, whether it's insurance or avoiding it altogether. The other thing, hurricanes, tornadoes, and now all the freezes that are happening in Texas. We don't have any of that. We've had a couple small earthquakes since I've moved here, but if you grew up in California like I did, our earthquakes here are nothing to be scared of and haven't really caused significant issues. So Idaho, total pro versus Texas when it comes to the weather. You just, again, comparing apples to oranges, totally different. Another thing that is totally different is the style. So I think Idaho has Texas beat when it comes to style, especially on new construction. Here, most of our properties tend to be more, I would say kind of your modern farmhouse vibes, not necessarily Joanna Gaines, but we really try and keep things very Idaho here. And I think it's a really classy and timeless look. We have a team in Texas and some of those houses there, one of the new trends is turquoise kitchens, like teal colored kitchens. And while I think it's fun, it reminds me a little bit more of a Barbie house that I would buy for my daughter. So I'm just not quite understanding the new looks and trends that are happening in Texas. I don't see them making their way here or to any other place in the country except for maybe like the Jersey Shore. I don't know, but It's just so different here. The other thing that is super weird in Texas that our team there encounters a lot of issues with is the bizarre layouts of the home. They're just doing some really weird things with their new construction, and the houses just are not super functional. Whereas here, we do so much new construction. I would say more than 50% of our business, I think it's probably fair to say 80+% of our business is new construction. And the houses, our builders are so good and they do such a good job of making homes functional. If it's something that you want to live in a long time and retire in, or if you need to work in your house or raise kids in your house, every community has floor plans and layouts that work really, really well. In Texas, it kind of seems to not be the case. Also, for some reason or another, they have a lot of foundation issues in Texas, and we are just not having those kind of issues. Those things don't really pop up here in Idaho. Now, there are some newer communities and newer resale homes that are dealing with a lot of plumbing type issues or flooding type issues. And again, that's another reason why it's important to reach out, give us a call, shoot us a text, or write us an email. You definitely need your own representation. I know there's been a lot of things floating around in the news and the headlines lately, but let me tell you, if you don't have your own representation, it is no different than working with your opponent's attorney when they are trying to sue you in court. It's not going to save you money, and it sure as heck is not going to save you. I don't know any other way to say it. It's so silly to me to think to make such a huge purchase without your own representation. So reach out, and until the next video, be blessed.